You're watching the Global Baseball Network. Thank you for clicking on this video, and coming up next on today's show, everything that you need to know about baseball in Mexico. A very good afternoon to you baseball fans. This is Marshall Lamert. Welcome once again to the Global Baseball Network, and let's wrap up our league guides today with every single thing that you need to know about Liga Mexicana de Baseball. We'll talk a little history, we'll talk a little bit about the league structure, and of course review all 18 teams of the LMB on today's show. And if you like the video, please be sure to hit that like button below the video screen. That's what it's for after all. And while you're down there, you might as well hit that subscribe button and a bell icon if you want more videos like this one. And I'll also go ahead and link the playlist for all of these episodes. We've done one on Japan, Korea, and Taiwan up to this point in time. So if you want to watch all of those together, there's the playlist right there. So settle in, and here we go. This is everything you need to know about baseball in Mexico. There is some debate as to when baseball entered the public consciousness in Mexico, whether it be by U.S. soldiers in the Mexican-American War or Cuban immigrants in the 1860s or 70s. In the latter half of the 19th century, more American companies began establishing offices in Mexico City and the surrounding areas, and those who worked in these offices spread the game even further. Around this time, organized amateur clubs began to form and hold contests against each other in front of crowds that grew with every passing game. 40 years on, as the game began drawing comparable crowds to the football matches of the day, journalist Alejandro Aguilar Reyes and his friend, former ballplayer Ernesto Carmona, formed the Liga Mexicana de Baseball in 1925 with 6 squads, only 3 of which still exist today. By this point, there had been several Mexican and Latin American players who had gone over to the States to play alongside African American ball players in the Negro Leagues, and many have been enshrined not only in Cooperstown, but also in the Negro League Hall of Fame in Kansas City, Missouri. These young men would soon return to Mexico and take up roster spots on these new teams, all the while as more teams were added to the league. Cuban two-way phenom Martin Dihigo would lead Águilas de Veracruz on their early championship runs in the 1940s. Lázaro Salazar played as the exciting Cuban speedster leading the early Sultans of Monterrey to their first rings. There were even American ball players who played in the Mexican winter leagues and ended up staying around to play on the LMB over the summer, like slugger Josh Gibson and transcendent pitcher Satchel Paige. After the Second World War, even more major leaguers made the jump to Mexico. Businessman Jorge Pascal lured some high-profile players via contracts that were larger than most major league contracts at the time. This tapping up, which sought to and successfully boosted the competition level of the LMB, actually led to one of the most landmark legal cases in American baseball history. Giants outfielder Danny Gardella was blackballed from Major League Baseball after playing for Águilas for the last half of the 1940s. The MLB commissioner at the time, Happy Chandler, had made a ruling that anyone who played in Mexico would be banned from the major and minor leagues in America for 5 years after their careers in Mexico ended. Gardella ended up taking Chandler to court over the half-baked alleged breaking of the reserve clause that was used to legitimize the ban. The federal judge dismissed the suit that the antitrust laws that Gardella alleged were broken did not apply to baseball players. The good news was, Chandler did not want a court battle that might have followed this decision, and the ban was soon lifted. However, the damage was done, and the two leagues maintained poor relations with one another after that point. By the time the 50s were over, though, the Mexican League had great players of its own and did not have to rely on America to bring in star power. The great Hector Espino, who we did a video on, and later Nelson Barrera, who we are about to do a video on, captured the imagination of the public and brought Mexican baseball into the upper echelon of the world game. They were even able to send a star over to America who would light MLB on fire and bring massive quantities of new Latino fans not seen before in the history of MLB. Fernando Valenzuela. Since then, LMB has matched MLB almost like for like in terms of popularity, and is arguably more popular in Mexico than MLB is in America. Like MLB, LMB had to weather cheating scandals, corruption scandals, and a big doping scandal that occurred from 2012 to 2016 involving 45 players. Their handling of doping is much different though, issuing only a $5,000 fine and a short suspension. and many have accused LMB of softening the doping punishments to allow foreign players to continue their careers without threat of punishment for their doping habits. But even still, the character of the Mexican game is light, vibrant, loud, and above all, powerful. And it's time that we take a look at the hitter's paradise that is the LMB. Here we go, all 18 teams of LMB, their record from last season, their best player, and a season prediction for 2022 for good measure, as of about a week into the season this year. Out of Estadio Alfredo Harpelu in Mexico City, we have the most successful team in Mexican baseball history, Diablos Rojos del Mexico. Known historically as the Reds, they're the Yankees of LMB, with a storied history stretching back to the 1940s, and they have treated their fans to a great many championships since then, winning rings, divisions, and making the playoffs almost every year. 22 South Division championships and 16 rings in the LMB's championship, the Serie del Rey for Diablos Rojos. As for last year, they won the South Division comfortably again, but were upset by Leones del Yucatan in the Southern Championship Series. The core itself did not have too many big-name standouts. Baja California native Yafet Amador led the offense, slashing .314, .404, .587, with 15 homers and 57 runs batted in. The roster is not depleted, and they brought in some extra pieces to help the offense stay hot in the big moments. If they execute, they'll be fine. Over in the north, out of Estadio Panamericano in Guadalajara, might be the best performing expansion team in the history of baseball, Mariachis de Guadalajara. They topped the North Division in their very first season, 46 wins, unbelievable. Leo Jerez led the offense by winning a batting title, hitting a whopping .401 for the season. Oryx Buffalo Masaru Nakamura led the league in wins with 8 before re-signing in Kobe again for 2022. With everything going their way, you'd think it was written in the stars for 2021, but their incredible year was stopped by eventual champions Toros de Tijuana. Nakamura's departure might hurt the pitching staff, but the offense has not really had any losses at all. If the pitchers pull their weight, they could repeat their magnificent performance from last year. And I guess it's about time we talk about those Toros, shall we? The way their history is shaped up, they closely resemble the Washington Senators, a very old franchise with some limited success but have moved around a bunch. Out of Parque La Junta in Nuevo Laredo, they won 5 rings, with the most recent coming in 1989. They moved to Tijuana in 2004 and became the Toros, and did top the South Division that year, but have not had much success until very recently, winning it all for the first time in Tijuana in 2017, and then obviously with their title this past year. That run would be helped by Dominican slugger Leandro Castro, 2021's hits and RBI leader, and a lights-out season from their closer, ex-MLB reliever Fernando Rodney. This, for me, looks like a team that wants to repeat. They haven't played like it to start, but hey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. The second-place team in the north from 2021, Olme Castillo Tabasco, was a bit of an anomaly. Out of Estadio Centenario 27 de Febrero in Villahermosa, they have one singular ring in their 45-year history, and that was back in 1993. Their 36 wins last season came largely off the back of a career year from their Colombian ace Luis Escobar, who won an ERA title on 2.54 for the season. He too was with the Fubon Guardians this year though. Acereros, hurler, and ex-MLB pitcher Fernando Salas was acquired to pick up the slack, and the offense did just enough, and things worked out okay. They knocked out Pericos de Pueblo in the first round, but would be shut down by eventual North champions Leones del Yucatan. Will they make the playoffs again? Probably. Will they make it any further? Absolutely not. There's just no strength here on either side of the ball. Parque Crucucan Alamo in Merida plays host to Leones del Yucatan. 4 rings and 9 championships since 1954. Last year was no different. They're almost a perennial playoff contender. They're dreadful hitters, but the pitching so far has been excellent, and that's what's got them over the hump to square off against Toros in the Serie del Rey last year. Their ace, Jake Thompson, led the league in whip with 1.07 and won 2 games in the Serie del Rey despite the team's loss. That's about all there is to write home about for this, though. They've not signed anybody to help their offense in the offseason, which would explain why they're off to such a slow start. Advancing to the north, we come to Saltillo and Estadio del Baseball de Francisco I. Madero to visit Sarraparos de Saltillo. 3 rings, 1980 and back-to-back in 2009 and 2012. so they're a bit of a late bloomer in terms of success. They've consistently brought the offense, often at the cost of some strong pitching, and last year was no different. Saraparos earned a third-place finish thanks in large part to the bat of Dominican slugger Raynel Rosario, who led the league in long balls with 20. The lack of good pitching ended up costing them, though, again, as it so often does, despite the many playoff berths, getting beaten 4-1 by the more balanced team that finished behind them in the north, Acereros de Monclova. We'll head to Monclova next to examine Acereros under the microscope. From Estadio del Baseball in Monclova, Acereros have really blossomed in the 21st century. They won 3 division titles, with the first coming in 1998, and they won it all pre-pandemic in 2019. That balance I referred to earlier has largely come from the veteran presence on the team. MLB veterans aplenty here. The legendary Julio Franco acts as the hitting coach for this ex-MLB cadre. Former domestic abuser, Cubs shortstop Addison Russell patrols the middle infield alongside journeyman Danny Espinoza. Well-known trash can user Josh Reddick and burnout speedster Keon Broxton fill out the outfield. Former Yankees prospect Chris Carter has found his footing here and morphed into one of the league's best sluggers. But the 2 legends are the stars here. Postseason hero and Giants legend Pablo Sandoval stands on third. And of course, Big Sexy himself, Bartolo Colon, entering his age 48 season. This will be a fun team to watch regardless of whether or not they make the playoffs, and we'll see if they stay balanced on both sides of the ball this year. They want to make it further than the second round in 2022. Another storied franchise here from Estadio Universitario Beto Avila in the metropolis of Veracruz comes El Águila de Veracruz. They've been around since 1903 in one form or another and have notched 6 championships since then, but they've been unlucky for a while, with their last ring coming all the way back in 2012. Last season was also their return to the big time after a 3-year absence. Lately, the hitting has been top-notch, and last year was no different. Former Angels prospect Alexi Amarista was the star last year, slashing .369, .408, .631 from shortstop. They made some signings to help out the bullpen down the stretch, and that should get them a little closer in the playoffs. Not sure if they can go all the way, though. Another kick-ass offense to discuss here, Pericos de Puebla from Estadio del Baseball Hermano Cerdán. 5 rings for Pueblos, with their most recent coming in 2016. Their offense was marvelous, but the lack of pitching caused them to fall in the upset to Olmecas. David Olmedo Barrera led the offense with a solid line of .354, .407, .694, with 16 home runs and 45 RBIs. Danny Ortiz chipped in 48 more RBIs and 16 more home runs. They snuck into the playoffs with a .500 record, and there's a handful of pitchers that they brought in to try to fix their issues. CBPL alum Lisaverto Bonilla, after a disappointing season with the Uni-President Lions, is at the head of that bunch. We'll see if that'll be enough for Pueblos this year. Park Alberto Romo Chavez in Aguas Calientes plays host to Rieleros de Aguas Calientes. To put it nicely, they've been aggressively okay for most of their history. 1 ring and 2 division championships. Most recent championship came back in 2012, and the ring came in 1978. Leonardo Reganato led the offense with a .358, .428, .485 line. Only 18 RBIs though, hence why the slugging percentage was so low. And that's the case throughout the lineup. They fought hard in the first round against Toros, but they could not pull it out in the end. No new signings, few changes to the team. There's no way they get further than the first round at maximum, right? Last 2 playoff teams, Algodoneros de Union Laguna from Estadio Revolucion in Torreon slipped in under .500 last year and fell to Mariachis in the first round. They've won 2 championships mid-century, but have come nowhere close to another since 1990. Isaias Tejeda and Nick Torres provided the only 2 noteworthy performances for the team last year, 14 and 15 homers respectively, both hitting over .300 and both had on-base percentages over .400. With the woeful pitching, though, they had no hope of getting too far, and they would need more offensive help to get them over the hump. MLB alums Yangreva Solarte and Eric Ibar joined the team for 2022, so we'll see what kind of difference it makes for next year, but they deserve something to go right for them. Last year was up there as one of the most forgettable seasons in the history of Tigres del Quintana Roo. They're edged by their former crosstown rivals Diablos Rojos for championships. They have 12 and Diablos have 17. They used to play in Mexico City before moving to Cancun and Estadio del Baseball Beto Avila, not to be confused with the stadium in Veracruz. They've topped the South 18 times, most recently in 2015, and their most recent ring came that year in 2015, after which they commenced a rebuild under the supervision of their owner, the legendary Mexican hurler Fernando Valenzuela. Yosmani Guerra tried his best with a .294 average and a .411 on base percentage last year, but no one on the team broke 10 home runs and no one broke 40 RBIs. Nando is very unamused, I'm sure. Speed running the last 6 teams since they did not make the playoffs. Bravos de Leon from Estadio Domingo Santana have won 1 ring in their history in 1990, exiting the league in 1991. They returned in 2017 and have done very little of note since then. They've signed former CPBL hurler Mitch Lively to help with the pitching staff this year, though. Pirates de Campeche are noteworthy as the longtime home of Mexican baseball legend Nelson Barrera. They've never won the South Division, but have won 2 rings as the underdogs, 1983 and 2004, from appropriately Estadio Nelson Barrera in Campeche. They've not been able to get it done since 2004, and little has changed since they finished second to last year. Former Curaçaoan MLB beast Jair Jurgens is the ace of the Oaxaca Guerreros staff in 2021. He was not very good. Speedster Alonso Harris, however, has been very fun to watch at the plate and on the base paths, but Guerreros have had very little to cheer about in the last decade. Last year was predictable, and next year I do not think will be very different despite the passion of the fans at Estadio Eduardo Vasconcelos in Oaxaca. Back in the north, the Sultans of Monterrey have been quite successful in their long history that stretches back to 1939. This was Hector Espino's team that he played in his prime with. He would not be pleased at the baseball on offer currently in Estadio Mobile Super in Monterrey, though. Frustrating year last year for the Sultans. Team batting was not that bad, 5th in the league, and Victor Mendoza had himself a career year, slashing .365, .441, .610. The pitching was woeful and still is. They have not fixed it, but could go either way for the Sultans this year. Tecolotes de los Dos Laredos, the world's only bi-national baseball team out of Estadio Nuevo Laredo and Unitrade Stadium in Laredo, Texas, have been pretty awful in recent years. The last of their 5 rings came in 1989. Balbino Fuenmayor is very good. Led the team with 9 home runs, and he's very young. Should be fun to watch in the next few years, but this team is still marinating in rebuild mode. We'll check back in a little while. And Yuri Tavares led the awful Generales de Durango with a .353, .406, .603 line, but his RBI numbers were paltry at 36 last season. That tells you pretty much everything that you need to know about Generales. They're new, young, and are slowly building up from Estadio Francisco Villa in Durango. And, oh man, I am tired. Phew. As far as its structure, it's almost exactly the same as MLB when it's at its full length, only about 40 games shorter and way more day games. Playoff structure, top 6 teams in both zones, North and South zones, make the playoffs. 2 get eliminated in the first round, 2 more in the zone championship, and the winners face off in the Serie del Rey. To watch the league, follow each team's YouTube channels, I'll link a few in the description, and also be sure to subscribe to Home Run TV, which is also linked in the description. That'll cost you about $28 a month. And I think that just about covers it. If, when time comes later on in this year, if you want a video on the Mexican Winter League, and that does exist, please do let me know in those comments down below. But hopefully you enjoyed this one. In the meantime, if you've been a follower of LMB for a number of years, or maybe you just got into it recently, let me know in those comments down below who you root for and if I missed anything out in our recap of the league. But as for right now, we're going to see you next month with another video. But for now, please do like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and you know somebody who would enjoy it right along with you. And please be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon down below the video screen to make sure that you are notified every time we upload a new video to get you your fix of the world's greatest game. I've been Marshall Emmert. This has been everything you need to know about baseball in Mexico. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see ya in the next one. But for now, that's the game.